Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something truly mind-bending. We are going to explore the hidden, mechanical grid that unites how we speak, how we create music, and how our computers actually think. It's a journey into the discrete mechanics of time itself, and it is absolutely fascinating.
So, here's a pretty provocative question for you. What exactly connects a traditional Japanese haiku, a modern J-pop track, and the literal microchip that is processing this explainer right now? I know, on the surface, a poem, a pop song, and a computer processor seem completely unrelated, but the answer actually lies in the fundamental physics of discrete timing units. We're going to look at how humans and machines break continuous, flowing time down into strict, manageable mathematical blocks.
Here's our roadmap for understanding this universal metronome, the rhythm of language, special morae as time, music, grids and J-pop, quantization and mechanical rhythm, and finally, the computer's internal clock.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the rhythm of language. When we talk about language, most of us instantly think of the syllable as the basic building block, right? But standard Japanese operates on a completely different system. It uses something called the mora or haku. See, while English relies on syllables, which can wildly vary in how long they take to say out loud, Japanese relies on the mora. In this system, every single unit, even just a standalone consonant, takes up its own strictly dedicated block of time.
This contrast is actually wild when you map it out. English is what linguists call a stressed timed language. It has this dynamic, almost Morse code rhythm of heavy and light stresses, where we naturally compress and speed right through unstressed syllables just to get to the next stressed beat. But Japanese? It utilizes a rapid, highly regular machine gun rhythm. It's isochronous. That means each mora receives exactly equal duration, marching forward to a perfectly steady, unyielding internal beat.
Moving on to Section 2, special morae as time. Standard Japanese actually contains 4 special morae. Now, these units can't form a syllable on their own, but they absolutely act as rigid, independent units of rhythmic time. Take the moric nasal, for example, the final N. It gets its very own distinct heartbeat. Or even crazier, the sokuon, which is the small tsu. The small tsu often represents a literal pause. It's a 1 mora period of absolute silence. But in the Japanese rhythmic grid, that silence demands the exact same block of time as a fully spoken sound. It's literally a discrete placeholder of time.
The source research reveals the mathematical predictability of this language. Over 70% of Japanese morae are simple consonant-vowel pairings, and because the vast majority of the language is constructed from these identical, perfectly balanced blocks, it really anchors that steady, predictable machine gun articulation we were just talking about. It's a language built natively on a rigid timing grid.
Okay, Section 3, music, grids, and J-pop. So how does speech actually dictate melody? Well, researchers use a formula called the NPVI, which measures the durational contrast between consecutive notes. English yields a really high NPVI because its stress-timed Morse code rhythm naturally translates into highly syncopated, bouncy, unpredictable musical notes. But Japanese yields a much flatter, lower NPVI. Its mora-timed speech just naturally demands flatter, more uniform, monotonic notes from its songwriters. And you can literally see this evolution in modern J-pop text setting. Notice how traditional acoustic-leaning artists like Hoshino Gen assign a separate independent musical beat to almost every single special mora. He's preserving that traditional spoken Japanese timing. But then, look at modern electronic acts like YOASOBI. They dramatically compress these special morae. They fuse them together to fit into incredibly fast-paced, computerized 16th-note tempos. They are essentially overwriting the traditional linguistic grid to match a digital one.
Which leads us perfectly to Section 4, quantization and mechanical rhythm.
Watch what happens when these two musical philosophies collide. Take the English song "Oh My Darling Clementine." It starts with an anacrusis, which is a weak, syncopated pickup beat that perfectly fits English's bouncy rhythm. But when you look at the Japanese translation, Yukiyama Sanka, the lyricists entirely flattened out that bouncing rhythm. They completely removed the pickup beat so the lyrics align strictly with the strong downbeats, perfectly matching their native moraic constraints.
Today, music producers enforce this flat, isochronous rhythm using a digital process called quantization. Inside a digital audio workstation, or DAW, you record a human performance, you define a mathematical grid, and then you apply quantized strength to literally snap every single human note perfectly onto that absolute rigid grid.
Artists like Yoasobi even use Vocaloid software to program lyrics directly into the computer, entirely bypassing human vocal habits to achieve perfect mechanical timing.
But here is the crazy paradox of human microtiming. We are incredibly sensitive to rhythm. In fact, we can consciously detect a deviation as tiny as 2.5% from a perfect isochronous pulse. We build these perfect digital grids to make our music sound tight, but if you hard quantize the performance to 100% perfection, it suddenly sounds robotic and lifeless to our ears. We crave the grid, sure, but we also require those slight biological deviations from it to feel what we call groove.
All right, for our final leap, Section 5, the computer's internal clock. Let's strip away the music entirely and look at the silicon chip that's actually running the DAW software. Every modern computer is built on an architecture that separates the memory from the processor, and they're connected by a physical wire called a bus. Because data has to physically travel back and forth across this bus, it creates a lag called the von Neumann bottleneck. To manage this delay, the entire system is forced to operate on incredibly strict, timed execution cycles. It's literally an internal metronome that governs every single action the machine takes.
This mechanical delay forms the literal foundation of our digital reality. As researcher Martin Irvine points out, we love to think of computers as thinking machines that understand symbols, data, and code. But the physical architecture doesn't actually know what a symbol is. What we call code is really just an automated sequence of physical actions, entirely dependent on being perfectly synchronized over discrete, unyielding intervals of time.
So, here is the ultimate takeaway. Deep inside the machine, inside the arithmetic logic unit, there are no semantic symbols. There aren't even actual ones and zeros. There is only a relentless, perfect metronome of clocked voltage. A high voltage is a 1, a low voltage is a 0. But it only matters if it happens exactly on the beat of the clock cycle. This physical, mechanical grid beautifully mirrors the linguistic constraints of the Japanese small 2. Both are rigid, abstract blocks of time that have to be perfectly accounted for to make the entire system function.
As modern pop music compresses human speech to match the fast-paced, clocked voltage of our hardware, it leaves us with a totally fascinating connection to ponder. If our language, our art, and our very machines are all converging onto the exact same isochronous mechanical grid, are we programming the computer, or is the computer programming us? I really hope this explainer has completely changed how you hear the ticking clock of our digital world. Thanks so much for tuning in.